Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sunny Wasserman back for the 252nd Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition. We are considering changing the name to the Solartopia.org gathering. We'll talk about that in a bit, but we are back here in the first session of 2026, the year of the attack on Venezuela. It is mind-boggling. We're starting off with more than 50 people. We're going to open up with our poem from our Poet Laureate, Mimi Gurman. We're going to interview a mayor, Mayor HEIDE, who's been with us much of the time through the previous year, and we bring her on especially because she is an elected official that has been arrested, now joined in that company by the leader of Venezuela. And we're going to, after we discuss the situation in Oregon with a democracy under attack, we're going to have an open forum on Venezuela and what's been involved here. But I wanted to make sure that we opened with something other than Venezuela, and we are doing that. Mayor HEIDE, Mayor, have you been have federal troops landed in your town in Oregon to drag you off to trial for drug trafficking in New York? Has that happened yet? No.
Not yet, not yet.
Okay, well, keep an eye out. As best I can tell now, the death toll, which nobody seems to want to talk about, the major media is not discussing the death toll in Venezuela. It appears to be well over 60, closer to 80, but we don't know yet, and we will find out at some point. But we're going to start with Mimi Gurman with a poem. We're going to be joined later by KARL GROSSMAN, Steve Donziger, hopefully Jeff Cohen, and many, many others to discuss the situation in Venezuela. And you will have your chance to speak. But first, we give Mimi her chance to speak. Mimi, our poetess, can you give us your verses and open the gathering for us, please?
Yeah, you bet. I wrote this the other day. It is a poem called Scanning for Peace. I scan the headlines, looking for meaning inside the negative space of words in sentences that turn to paragraphs in the black and white smudge of print. Searching universes between leaf and branch, sky and mountain, searching for the balance on this keeling ship, for fundamental truths, areas unoccupied by lies. It is written that inside the negative space, one finds breathing room, not platitudes of war, and that it is difficult to find the compass when there is not enough negative space. Each element of emptiness between, around, above, below, and within carries the weight. It must be that the negative shape of peace shares its soft edges with the positive constancy of war. To find peace, the eye of the heart must search deeply inside the frame.
Cool. Thank you, Mimi. Now, you wanted to say something about a particular
I
place?
did. I did. I've been very involved in politics in a small town in Oregon called Waldport, and it's part of Lincoln County, if I have that correct. Yeah, Lincoln County, Oregon. And in Lincoln County, there was a death last night that really I'm just going to read what this person, Stephen Kent, wrote about Claire Elizabeth Hall. So, okay, honoring my friend Claire Elizabeth Hall, rest in peace. Please join me. Hold on, I'm scrolling here. Please join me in honoring a woman who spent her life in service to others, a woman who showed more courage simply by existing than many ever show in a lifetime of comfort. In her role as county commissioner in Lincoln County, Oregon, she served the public for decades, quietly, steadily, and without fanfare. She did the work that keeps communities functioning, the unglamorous, necessary labor that requires patience, integrity, and a belief that people are worth serving even when they don't always act like it. She believed in that work long before the world believed in her. Her life was not easy. She carried the weight of ill health, the strain of being misunderstood, and the cruelty of being targeted simply for being herself. She endured persecution that no human being should ever have to face, not because she was weak, but because she refused to disappear. Her existence was an act of defiance, and her persistence was a kind of quiet heroism. And now, in her passing, we see a final measure of the world she had to navigate. There are those who greet her death with celebration, as if the loss of a human life were something to applaud. Their reaction reveals nothing about her and everything about them. Their smallness, their bigotry does not diminish her. Their cruelty does not define her story. Their applause is an indictment of their own character, not a commentary on hers. She lived with more authenticity than her detractors could ever muster. She showed more courage in a single moment than they have shown in their entire lives. And while they cling to their bitterness, she leaves behind something they cannot touch, a legacy of service, resilience, and truth. I honor her not because she was perfect, but because she was human, fully, fiercely, and unapologetically human. She deserved better from this world. She deserved safety, respect, and ease. She deserved to grow old without fear, but even in the absence of those things, she carved out a life of meaning. Let us remember her for her strength, her humor, her stubbornness, her kindness, and her refusal to be erased. Let us remember the work she did, the people she helped, and the quiet dignity she carried, even when the world tried to deny it to her. May her memory be a reminder that compassion is a choice, that cruelty is a failure, and that every person deserves the right to live and die without being mocked for who they are. She is gone from our sight, but not from our gratitude, not from our respect, not from our hearts. May she finally rest in the peace she was too often denied in life. Claire Elizabeth Hall, rest in peace. And
Wow, that's about that. That is powerful. That is,
Mayor Heidi can talk about her, and it's Sunny, if you would introduce Heidi, that would be great.
of course, I want to mention another great soul that departed recently, Howie Klein. I don't know if Dorothy has joined us, Dorothy Wright, but Howie Klein was a giant, a really amazing human being, and I can't begin to do justice. So, if Dorothy or someone else who knew him well wants to say a few words about Howie, that would be great. I want to mention we're joined by two media giants here, David Saltman and Karl Grossman, and we will get to them in this Venezuelan miasma. But first, Mayor Heidi, the duly elected mayor of Waldport, Oregon. In solidarity, you were recently arrested, as Maduro has been. Can you talk about the similarities of your arrest with those of the elected leader of Venezuela?
Well, forgive me for being emotional today, Sonny, because again, we just got this news hours ago. And Claire Hall, excuse me, she was with me when I was arrested. She was the one who gave me the confidence to go and be arrested, and that she would bail me out if I needed. And luckily, I didn't need to be bailed out, but I'm so emotional today because, like myself, Claire Hall was under recall. And she was under recall again for being herself. It had nothing to do with politics. It had to do with them not liking her. And so I feel very deep today because as all of us were fighting so strong for democracy, and I don't know about you guys, but I just feel like quitting. I just
No,
feel
no,
like,
no, no, no. That you
yeah,
can't do that.
no, I can't. And I would never because of Claire. Because now I have to stand in her courage and stand in her legacy. And there's so many others, like you said, like Howie Klein and so many people that are fighting the good fight. And so those of us who still breathe and walk and can, we must fight. But I just want to share with everybody that these are dark days, these are dark times. And when you have dictators stealing our neighbors off of our streets and your mayors getting arrested for taking their elected seat and commissioners being, recalled for their sexuality and all of the things, like all of the things that people think is okay to hate each other, like we have to stop it and just say no. We just cannot allow it anymore because it's making our world ugly and dysfunctional truthfully it's killing democracy. And so that's what I bring to the table today is this fucking need to fight and stop this war on each other.
Well, thank you so much, Heidi. You're a great presence and symbol, and we really appreciate it. If you could send that article that was written about her, about Claire Hall, we could, Steve, maybe if you could publish it at freepress.org. I want to read it. I mean, it was really powerful, and I'm sorry I didn't meet Claire Hall, but I'm glad to meet you, Mayor Heidi, and keep up the fight. When they can arrest mayors and prime ministers and elected presidents, then we know it's out there. So thank you so much for keeping, and of course we know you won't quit. So there, I mean, where are you
Well,
going to get?
I am being recalled, so I tell myself every day I'm here because I was voted in, and I'll stay here as long as the voters want me. So, and we do have Amy Anderson here today from Indivisible, and I also want to give credit to Amy Anderson because she stopped ICE when we were talking the last time we met about a month ago. ICE was trying to rent a hotel here in Waldport, Oregon, to house their regime, and Anderson was really part of that. She was a huge piece of getting our community to show up. There was over 700 emails, and I want to say over 100 people, close to 200 people who showed up and just absolutely said, we will not have ICE in our little tiny town.
Can we get Amy on
Yeah,
this?
Amy, if you can say a few words, and then we're going to go to Venezuela. But we have 85 people with us. Amy Anderson, you're somewhere
There's more going on with Amy, and I just wanted to bring that up in Waldport. So there's the recall against Heidi, the mayor,
okay.
because she's fascinating. There was the recall against Claire, who just died. And now there's also, through the work of Indivisible Oregon, and this is what I'd really like Amy to fill us in on. The work of Indivisible Oregon is propping up a fake Democrat who's in the Congress in their district, Mayor Heidi's and Amy's district, and we have somebody running against her, and this news is being quashed.
Okay.
Amy, take it.
Okay. And then we'll do this quickly, Amy, and then we're gonna I'll go to Venezuela. But you can speak in English unless you're fluent in Spanish. But go ahead with English. That's fine.
Yeah, English is about it right now. Yeah, what Indivisible National's goals are to primary corporate Democrats straight out this season. And I got an email a couple of days ago from our consolidated Oregon Indivisible Network, which contains all of the chapters in Oregon, saying that, oh, come in and hear Val Hoyle speak to us, and she's going to answer all your questions. They were handing us Val Hoyle on a silver platter. Well, Val Hoyle voted against the impeachment of Trump, and Val Hoyle voted to let loggers log our old growth forest, and she got on the I can't even remember, on Doge. Yes, thank you. So anyway, she is a corporate Democrat. She is backed by the corporate Democrat PACs. And so I sent an email and I said, hey, what are you doing?
Okay.
And they did email me back and they said, well, we're not really wanting to put our thumb on the scale in the primary. We wait, we're not an arm of the Democratic Party. And so I wrote back and I said, excuse me, but according to National, this is exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And now I have a Zoom meeting with them tomorrow before this conversation takes place. So that is where we're at right now. My intention is to make sure that our consolidated Oregon network understands in no uncertain terms that we are to be primarying these people like Val Hoyle. So that's where that
Good.
stands.
All right, so listen, we'll have clarification on that if you want to have the woman who's running against her, the true progressive. We can have her on next week, and this
Yeah.
is critical to and we have a similar situation with Governor Gavin Newsom of California, who's been assaulting the solar industry and promoting nuclear power, going off to global conferences talking about how great California's solar industry is when in fact
Mhm.
he's trying to kill it. So, we have a primary goal of killing, shutting down the Diablo nuclear plant and all other nuclear plants. I just, by the way, had correspondence from somebody in Ukraine, and we're going to deal with this further. The Ukrainian government, which I strongly support in its war against Putin, is supporting building more nuclear plants in Ukraine. It defies any stretch of the imagination. So we need to be looking, especially on a call like this, at screening people who claim to be progressives and running under the Democratic label who are anything but. I mean, the idea of Zelensky promoting new nuclear plants is
Mhm.
it's like the brown acid. So, Mimi, did you want to say something? And we're going to jump
I
ahead.
did want to just say that next week we will have that primary challenger on this Zoom.
And what is her
Her name
name?
is Dr. Melissa Bird, and you can
Okay.
read about her. I know that we don't endorse anyone on this show, but you can read about her at Melissa Bird for Congress, and
Okay.
she's a dynamo. She's just a freaking dynamo.
Okay. Very good. Very
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
Mike Hirsch, did you want to jump in and say something?
Yeah, really quickly, I just want to echo what Amy said. This is a nonpartisan, nonprofit project. We do not endorse any candidates. We've welcomed Greens, socialists, even Republicans, as well as Democrats and independents to our Zoom. And so just to keep that straight.
Mhm.
And I also want to echo what Amy was saying. We have to be very careful that progressive organizations aren't corrupted or misled into supporting corporatists. And as Sluggo said, we have to, or Sonny, I'm sorry,
That's all
that's,
right.
Mhm.
I'm still stuck in
Mhm.
2025.
That's all
But
right.
what we're talking about is the need to don't listen to what politicians say, watch what they do. And Gavin Newsom has been a nuisance and
Horrible.
worse.
Horrible.
So
No,
thanks.
as the man said, don't follow leaders. Watch the parking meters. He also said, most famously, money doesn't talk; it swears. And everything we're seeing in the American government now is the product of a government being run by big money. That's the definition. We got 90 people with us. Steve Caruso, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just read last night Ukraine just invested in battery. It sounded like battery backup. They weren't very
Yes.
specific, but that was a plus. But then the rest of the article was a little evasive. But
Yeah. Well, listen. Okay. So thank you, Mimi. Thank you, Mayor Heidi. Thank you,
Mhm.
Amy. We're going to continue to our bastion of democracy in Waldport, Oregon. I hope our attention to democracy in Waldport does not result in a mass invasion from Donald Trump, but I guess anything is possible. So
Okay.
we we are now with our 90 folks here on our YouTube and all the other ways we get out. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention I do want to consider changing the name for the new year from GREEP to solartopia.org. And if you want to, because for various obvious reasons, and if you want to weigh in on that, email me directly if you would, solartopia@gmail. So again, if we can think about renaming the Zoom call, I've loved it. It's been almost 6 years, but things want to change, and solartopia.org is what we call the gathering going forward. So just let me know what you think about that. And also, you can tell me what you think about changing Sluggo to Sonny. I've been Sluggo for 50 years, but I am no longer a ball player. Sorry about that. And I don't look like the cartoon character anymore. So what can I tell you? Nancy Naparco was with me last night at a great gathering, and she called me Sonny. So if Nancy can call me Sonny, anybody can. So listen, we have with us now to start the great Karl Grossman. And Karl and I have just co-authored a piece that will be up tomorrow at Counterpunch. And this is the opening. We are now open to a very long and detailed, and everybody gets to speak, discussion of the lunacy that Donald Trump has now unleashed at Venezuela. There are so many aspects to this. I mean, I watched that big 5-minute spiel from James Carville, and in his mind, it's all about Epstein and the wag the dog diversion. But Karl and I, there's oil, there's Cuba. There's a whole dimension in this attack on Venezuela that has to do with Cuba and Marco Rubio in particular. There and biggest of all, as best Karl and I, and I'm sure you can ascertain, is the issue of the petrodollar, which is not being discussed anywhere in the major media. And before we'll let Karl dive into the weeds here. Karl and I both being former professors. If it gets too academic, there will not be a quiz, but we do want to get to the bottom of this multi-pronged fiasco. We will be joined by Steve Donziger, who was prosecuted by Chevron, which stands to directly profit from this, and also by Clifford Tasner of the Southern California Americans for Democratic Action, and Jeff Cohen, but from Roots Action. But Karl, lead the charge here and give us a view, an overview of what's really involved with this insane invasion, and then we'll go to Lynn Feinerman, who's got her hand up. Oh, Karl, you're muted. Got to unmute you here, bro. Hold on. There.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just read the top and the end of the very extensive piece that Harvey and I wrote that'll be on Counterpunch tomorrow. The elements behind Trump's war on Venezuela are fourfold. They center on the theft of Venezuela's oil, the removal of Cuba's primary oil lifeline, the protection of the dollar-based petro-dollar. And Harvey was just talking about, it's a little complicated, but it's central to all this. And Trump's desperate need to deflect attention from the deepening quagmire that is the Epstein scandal. And the ultimate question they raise is, will his blatantly illegal violation of US and international law finally result in the impeachment and removal of Trump from the White House, or the 2026 midterm elections lead to an end of his destructive control of the US government? The lethal litany of reasons for Trump's invasion is led by the US seeking Venezuela's huge reserves of oil. It supposedly has 303 billion barrels compared to the US with but 45. After Venezuela is Saudi Arabia with 267 and Iran 208, and then the list drops by 100. And all these facts that are brought up in the piece are hyperlinked, will be hyperlinked on the Counterpunch page. And let me just jump after 7 double-spaced pages to the end of the piece. The question for Congress, the people of the United States, and the world now becomes, will this violation of all tenets of U.S. and international law finally lead to the removal of this madman from the White House? So that sort of encapsulates the piece. Harvey was just speaking about these four key reasons. And just one thing before I end is I quote David Swanson, and Swanson is the executive director of the organization World Beyond War. And it's a very strong quote from, Swanson: seizing a nation's oil provides no legal basis for waging war or committing murder, said David Swanson. But then he goes on to talk about the Global Day of Action on January 17th, just 2 weeks away, and it's being named No War on Venezuela. And I quote Swanson: we need to be protesting at every U.S. embassy the world over, at every state and local government in the United States, and in Washington, D.C., in a manner to prevent the functioning of the Monrovian, he's speaking of the Monroe Doctrine, mafia. So that's the piece that'll be running tomorrow on Counterpunch.
Right. So we will send everybody on the list. If you're not on our list for some reason, email us or at Steve Caruso. Put your email in the chat, and when Counterpunch runs the piece, and we'll put Steve will put it up also hopefully at freepress.org. We'll send you the piece. Karl is a great co-writer, and we meant to have a comprehensive piece, and now we want to go through the comprehensive reasons why this thing has happened. It is very complicated. It's very comprehensive, really, in terms of global geopolitics. And of course, it has a lot to do with the psychosis of Donald Trump, including the reason he chose the person he chose to run the country, which very, very interesting on many levels. I want to note also we're joined by Ursula Rudenberg. Ursula runs the Pacifica affiliate network. She's a great media asset, and I want to get to her in a little while. But let's get into Venezuela, and then Ursula, I'll call on you, please, to tell us more about the Pacifica network, which will follow up.
Sluggo, Ursula dropped off, but
All right.
we do have Jennie Gage and
Oh.
Hartzell Gray. So
Well, let
we
me
lost one and we
Lynn,
picked up two.
oh, good. Okay, Lynn Feinerman had her hand, and then we want to go to Jennie Gage to give us the view from MAGA land. Jennie is has been saved from MAGA, and maybe can tell us how MAGA is actually reacting to this. Lynn Feinerman, go ahead, please, and then Jennie Gage.
Yes, hi. I just wanted to get back to your inclusion of James Carville in the conversation and his attitude about it being a distraction from the Epstein files. That is totally inaccurate, as is usual with James Carville. I read a piece by Andrew Watkins, who is Women Rising Radio. Our program interviewed her. She has a Substack called How Project 2025 Will Ruin Your Life. And today she indicated that the plan to take over Venezuela has been in Project 2025 since its inception. This is not some nut job rump endeavor. This has been in the plan from people who are behind the scenes running foreign policy from the viewpoint of Project 2025 and the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting to hear, and not surprising, of course. A very small footnote as we move ahead, and Steve Donziger, I don't know if he's with us. Steve, if you're on the line, please raise your hand. One thing is, this is going to be a long discussion. One thing for background, the oil that it's obviously it's America's oil, but somehow found its way under Venezuela, is heavy, sour oil. And it's hard to refine. It's different from the American oil on in Texas and elsewhere, and there are complications that stem from that, which we will discuss. And thank you, Lynn, for pointing out. Yes, it's been an agenda item for a long time for Venezuela to be overthrown. The right wing wants it overthrown. And one of the reasons, as Carl and I discussed in the Counterpunch piece, is that Venezuela has been the primary supporter of Cuba. And it has been believed by the right wing in America, in the US, that if they can overthrow Venezuela, they can bring down the government in Cuba. And that is a major agenda item from Marco Rubio, who's has extreme right-wing Cuban roots. Am I right on that, Carl? Carl, you somehow always get muted. Let's see here. Can we do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Venezuela is the largest supplier of oil to Cuba. Russia is also, but Venezuela is number one. As to Marco Rubio, he's not just the Secretary of State, but he's also the Director of National Security. I mean, he has a dual role, though it's kind of the same role at this point. And he comes from a family that Cuban exiles. And Trump was talking also, like in the recent days, last couple of days, about Cuba and connecting what's been done to Venezuela to Cuba.
Well, now Trump has also mentioned attacking Mexico, and certainly he's also the attack on Venezuela has also prompted a response from the government of Denmark, which has been prompted to reiterate their warning that Trump better not think about taking Greenland in the middle of all this. So, has Jenny Gage returned to us, Mike Hurst? Because we want to hear.
She has.
Okay,
Yes.
Jenny Gage, can you fire up here? We want to get, this is generally a pretty progressive crowd with not much sense of the MAGA movement. I have been reading what Marjorie Taylor Greene has been saying about this invasion, and she's pretty fierce. I mean, she's sounding like somebody that I could have marched with during the Vietnam War. What is your feeling of how the MAGA movement is going to respond to this invasion?
First of all, thank you guys for having me back. I've missed you.
Well, we miss you, obviously.
So my Mondays have been busy. You're wonderful. I hopped in for a little bit and listened, and then I had to hop off to get to another call. But I was sitting at my desk crying this morning after. So first of all, I still belong to all kinds of different, like I get email newsletters. I belong to Facebook pages and different groups from when I was MAGA. And I've never unresponded. I've never unsubscribed to any of them. I still get them because that's where I get my information from. And this morning, I wanted to click in and just kind of see, like, what's the word on the street? How are people feeling about this? Get my finger on the heartbeat of the American right. And this is what made me freak out. And I still feel shaken by this. They're excited. Everybody's celebrating. Good job. President Trump is doing exactly what we wanted him to do. This is what we elected him to do. And it's really kind of a personal thing. I have fun when I'm in Facebook and I can actually click into people's profile pictures. I like to click on, well, who made this comment? Who commented that this is exactly what I elected President Trump for? He's making the world safe again. Who is this person? And then, you go and you see their profile picture and I'll scroll through their Facebook walls and kind of see what they're all about. And it's just like moms, it's soccer moms, it's very normal looking dads. It's, a profile picture of a very nice looking grandma and grandpa, and they have all kinds of pictures of their grandkids and some cute little dog, and somebody's mowing a lawn in the backyard in a picture. And what what stands out to me is that at the root of all of this, we're in some pretty unsettling times. You know, we're still off of the cusp of the pandemic. I know it seems like so long ago, but economically, and for my kids who lived through that and didn't have school for 2.5 years, we were just kind of coming off of that when all the war in Gaza and all of these different things started. And just coming into an election cycle made a lot of people unsettled. And all of the things that we've gone through have been the perfect time for people to radicalize. And with all this unsettling, there are a lot of people who obviously have leaned into Donald Trump. He's the savior. There's all these enemies out there. And in the comment section, I don't think that these are people who are just psychopaths who just want ill to come to other humans on the planet for no reason. These are people who are deeply afraid. They're afraid that their American way of life is going away. They're afraid that their kids aren't going to have a good future. They're afraid for the economy and so many other things. And they are blaming all of that on external forces that, in many ways, have absolutely nothing to do with it whatsoever. Venezuela is not the reason that my nephew died of fentanyl. It's not. But I had a real life conversation with a right wing family member about how she supports what's going on in Venezuela because her son died of a fentanyl overdose. And so that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing real life Americans who are kind hearted people who feel so deeply unsettled in this time, who are afraid of everything. And President Trump comes in as this knight in shining armor who's going to save us all. And he can do whatever the hell he wants to bring that about. And doesn't it remind a lot of you of, 1930s Germany?
Yes, it does. It does. But it's just hard to comprehend how, and why is Marjorie Taylor Greene so adamant in her opposition to the war? Is she so different?
MTG is opportunistic. And in my opinion, as someone who was MAGA until 2 years ago and followed her closely and was great, she was a hero of mine. I loved her. Now I hate her. Just to be clear, not a fan anymore. MTG sees the schism in MAGA happening from the inside out. And I believe that she's just positioning herself for power. I don't think that very many people doubt that. So for her to advance her career in politics, this is the perfect time for her, whether she's opposed to what happened in Venezuela, whether she really cares about the Epstein files, whatever. This is the perfect time for her, since Trump has already turned on her, to turn on him. It's just
Wow.
opportunistic.
Well, then the other question, the big question, one of the big questions for a lot of us is, it takes a simple majority of the House to impeach a president. Removal requires 2/3 of the Senate. How many Republicans, how many MAGA Republicans would you think would be willing to impeach at this point in time? We would need less than 10 in the House if all the Democrats vote to impeach.
You know what I worry about? I worry about so many people, and not just the congressional people, not just our state senators and congressmen and the federal senators and things like that. Like on a local level, on a national level, it's not just our political leaders, but also expanding beyond that, everybody who's part of the Trump administration. I'm afraid of the vast web of people who Trump has dirt on, who are afraid to do anything because then they're going to go to jail. They're going to go down too. So I think there are a lot of them. I think that there are a lot of corrupt people who've been in bed with, some of Trump's crooked ways for a very long time, and they're deeply afraid. They're afraid to stand against some of this stuff too, because their base has been so propagandized to. I'm having real life conversations with some of the few family members who are like Mormon, prepping, alt-right, white supremacist, MAGA people to the core. And I'm having real life conversations, and the panic in their voices, they're afraid that this war in Israel is a sign that Jesus is coming back soon. that everything's crumbling, we're all going to hell in a handbasket, and they deeply believe that Donald Trump is going to save them. So for us, we're looking at this from the outside because we don't buy into Trump stuff. We haven't been propagandized to, and we think, it doesn't make sense that people wouldn't vote against us. But even somebody in the Senate who knows that they're not on board with Trump, they also know that their base has been brainwashed. They know that their
So,
base is going to turn on them. So if they vote against anything that he does, then it's political suicide.
so how would, again, how would you can you give us a thumbnail? How would you characterize the MAGA response to the Venezuelan attack in light of the fact that he promised, among much else, that he wasn't going to take us into foreign wars? It's almost incomprehensible here.
Everything's incomprehensible at this point. But I was in a cult for 44 years, and every couple of years something new would come out. They'd say we're never going to do this, and then they do that. And when you're a believer, you also believe that whatever new idea they come out with is still the best idea. Like, people just kind of follow along at this point because they've been so heavily indoctrinated. Um, One thing that I think is an important talking point is we're so focused on Christian nationalism that we've kind of lost the big picture of Christian globalism. And this white American capitalistic Christian globalism is a much bigger problem than just MAGA wanting to take over the White House, right? So with Christian globalism, the people in power, they don't want to stop with just the boundaries of America. They want the whole world to be under American influence.
Oh my God. We have 100 people.
I did.
We have 100 people with us. That's a good chunk of America, but it's incomprehensible. Jenny, I mean, I don't know if you write stuff or whatever, but the MAGA position on this is just it's incomprehensible. I mean, we would have thought if Margaret Taylor, if you think she's a pure adventurous or opportunist, but still she must represent some part. And the other guy, Massey, the Kentucky Republican, these guys, they're coming from a very far right place. And Rand Paul, although, Rand Paul's father, actually, Ron Paul, had what I thought was some of the greatest critiques of the Vietnam War ever put down, and he was a far right guy. But the response of the American right wing to this invasion is going to be absolutely critical. And, we need to comprehend what's going on here, Jenny. I mean,
Have
now,
any of you had Fox News on today?
no.
They're celebrating.
What's that?
They're celebrating. This is a win for America. Good for us. Pat on the back. We took out a drug lord. All of our kids are going to be safe. Teenagers are going to die from fentanyl. And American power, because we have that oil that, China has oil fields down there in Venezuela. So that threatens our existence. So now we have control of the region. China shouldn't have oil fields in the Americas at all. So turn on Fox News and see what's going on, and you will not sleep well tonight. This would be a good time for me to still be MAGA. And there are days that I wake up and it's like, I wish that I had never had that moment where I saw the light and left, because this would be a great time to just.
Well, you did mention one thing, which is China is the primary customer for the Venezuelan oil, which, as I mentioned, is dirty, sour, and heavy. And has anybody? I know this is in the discussions among the MAGA people. Does the word petrodollar ever turn up?
That's not a topic that I ever discuss with people. I'm so sociological, relational, women's rights, things like that. So I don't typically get into that conversation. I'm sure people are talking about it, but that's not my wheelhouse very often. So,
because academics like me and Carl and my buddy Dave Sullivan here, we're focused on that. I mean, to me, that is the biggest issue of all, is the petrodollar. If the petrodollar collapses, which is totally bound up with Venezuela in many, many ways, the American economy is toast. You know, you want to talk about Germany 1933, we're talking about Wall Street 1929. I mean, if the petrodollar goes, the American economy is gone. And we're really on the brink here. Nobody seems to be raising the issue. Lynn, you had your hand up. Go ahead. Then Mike, then Dave. Lynn, go ahead. And then Ruth and Charlotte.
Thank
Charlotte
you.
Dennett is with us. Charlotte Dennett has some great, deep understanding in the world of
Hey, Sluggo,
petrodollar. Yeah.
before we get to them, can we have my friend Hartzell Gray speak for just a few minutes? He's very busy. He's a candidate for U.S. Congress, a wonderful progressive, a super leader, and the voice of soccer in
Okay.
in,
Well, I
in
don't know.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Is the Venezuelan soccer presence a threat to American dominance here? But go ahead, Hartzell, real quick, and then we got a line. But it's good to see you. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's so good to be back and to see you all. It's always an honor just to
Okay.
be a part of the Pacifica Radio Network. That's just
Oh,
an
yeah, and
honor, my
I do
friends.
want to mention Ursula Rudenberg. Ursula, if you'll raise your hand, I'll call on you too, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I feel like there's a story that still needs to be told, right? Because in this imperial conquest, this colonialism here in the 21st century, what I've been trying to explain to folks why this is so important for us to galvanize around these international moments is because this is an assault on the working class. Think about a working class Venezuelan who went to work for sub minimum wage, went home, and because of these illegal and just unconstitutional, barbaric, gangster invasions, they're now no longer here with us because over 100 casualties have already been accounted for. And for what? And I'm so happy that, Lynn, you brought this up. It's a yes and, right? Yes, the Epstein files are getting covered up, but this is an ideological project that is not anything new. In fact, the
Yeah.
president has reinforced all of this just within the last 4 hours.
Right.
Venezuela now going to Cuba. We're talking about Greenland. We are talking about madness is what this is. And so I just want us to, as we are gathered here as folks who understand not just the gravity of this moment, not just the unconstitutionality, but the humanity. That's what this call is about. It's the humanity of our folks. And this moment is not a throwaway over the seas head in the sand. This is a time for us to organize, to galvanize, but also have the moral clarity. I understand that we don't have enough in the Senate to remove the president, but this man needs to have articles of impeachment draft up against him at every day. And you know what? The Democrats can do a carousel line as to who wants to do it first. But the question is, we need fighters. We need a movement who's going to match this. We need to have everyone in the Congress saying we need to sign on to the War Powers Resolution. We need everyone to say that war is wrong, not just the fact that Congress didn't get a chance to sign off on it. War is wrong. We need to divest from the war machine and bring that and invest it into our folks here. Over 800,000 of our neighbors are currently unhoused, 30,000 plus veterans who the president just put in harm's way, a national security threat to enrich the pockets of oil oligarchs, to satisfy Marco Rubio's bloodlust, and to promote a 21st century imperialism that has to be stopped. And I know how we stop it is with us.
Okay. Very good, Hartzell. Beautifully spoken. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Ursula Rudenberg, again, if you're on, please raise your hand, and I want you to say a quick word. Hartzell mentioned the Pacifica Network, so please. Lynn Feinerman, then Saltman, David, and Ruth, and Charlotte. Thank you again, Hartzell. Go ahead, Lynn. We still have 100 people with us. Go ahead, Lynn.
Yes, hello. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a little trouble with
Okay,
the
go ahead.
unmuting.
Go ahead.
I wanted to get back to respond to Jenny's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I don't agree that Marjorie Taylor Greene is an opportunist. I think she's been getting a lot of Miss Piggy kind of attention from the rump. And I think that she has been under a lot of duress. And I think that she has to be given credit for standing for things that she probably never thought or realized she should stand for. She may even have discarded her ignorance about the whole fentanyl pretense and understand that it's really about the petrodollars, that it's really about world domination, and it's really about the intention of the United States to be the dominant nation. And, I feel that we need to look at, for a moment, I produce Women Rising Radio, so I want to look at the women, what's been happening with the women in addition to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look at Maria Machado. Woman got a Nobel Peace Prize for being a belligerent warmonger. And now Rump has thrown her under the big fat bus, which is being driven by Delcy Rodriguez, who's another piece of work. And Delcy evidently threw Maduro under the bus. This is like, it's like Damon Runyon, really, but it is in some sense, it's a systematic denigration of, use of, and making look bad of women and women in politics. And I feel that, it's very disempowering. Meanwhile, you have him and his people targeting La Presidenta in Mexico. You have a lot of use and abuse of women that, and of course, all the, quiet piggy rhetoric that is extremely destructive to women and to women's participation in public life. So I just wanted to get back to that and put that out as a real thing.
I agree with that 100%. And I am a globally recognized international rights women's rights activist. Last month, over 100 million people saw me in CBC in different places. So my whole platform, everything that I do, I wake up in the morning, I'm working for women's rights. And I'm at a space right now where I think that we have to be really discerning about what women are worthy to be under that umbrella of protection. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is one right now where I feel like the verdict is still sort of out. I did a video on her a couple months ago after she was on The View, maybe it was about a month ago, where I talked about how happy I was. As somebody who left MAGA, I was so happy to see Marjorie Taylor Greene come over and be standing up for the Epstein victims, and I had great hopes for her. I think, Lynn, that both things are true about MTG. I think that she is defending some things and taking some stances and making some lines in the sand in really beautiful ways. But I think that she is also still self-seeking and opportunistic. I think that both of those things are true. After I posted that video, I actually took the video off of my platform, although it reached tens of thousands of people, because I saw some subsequent interviews and things that she was doing and was watching the way that she was voting on different things. And she hasn't truly stood up for women. She hasn't truly stood up for the underprivileged, vulnerable populations in the ways that I would like her to in order for her to get my full stamp of approval. And I think that that's true of all of us. We as humans are complex. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's good and bad. She's both. And yes, women are being targeted and our rights are being reversed. And it's not a good time to be a woman. It's not a good time to be anybody. The men don't have it any better. It's a good time to maybe to take a spaceship out to the Mars or something. I don't know. Where do we go? How do we escape this?
Harvey, you're muted.
You're muted, Harvey.
If we can get Marjorie Taylor Greene to join us, I would love it. She's no longer in Congress, I guess, and which I'm sorry for, because she could vote for impeachment. But Jenny, we would love to, and Lynn, we'd love to have a three-way with you three and see if we can find out where she's really at. I've been predicting that she and the congresswoman from Texas will become best buddies, but we'll see about that. But Jenny, it's great to hear your lifeline in through MAGA. It's very important.
Thank
And
you.
I did suspect there would be this rah-rah thing, but you got to remember that the Monroe Doctrine dates to John Quincy Adams, and James Monroe was president in the early 1820s, and this Monroe Doctrine has been with us for a long time. But another big question, and Dave Saltman is certainly, who's next, is certainly qualified to discuss how is the rest of Latin America going to respond to this? I mean, what is Brazil going to do? And he's threatened the president of Mexico, who's also by the way a Jewish woman. I mean, and what's Canada? How's Canada going to respond? We've seen Denmark is not particularly happy, so this is going to be really interesting for me and Karl as academics. This is Donald Trump is now kind of a course in all aspects of global politics. I mean, he's taken this to every corner of the political bloc here, and this is a wild one. Dave Saltman, a globally renowned correspondent for all the major networks. You were in South America seeking Mengele, for God's sakes. What do you think is going to happen here?
Well, first of all, I'd like to tell Jenny and company that I hear that the next planet is a lot better.
You mean
So,
Planet Hollywood?
well, the thing that's been I'm not a I've covered petrodollars extensively and Latin America. I'm trying to get a handle on what's really going on here because it smells too bad to be just Donald Trump and his gang of 4 or 8 or 12 operating. So the first thing that strikes me is, and I'm sure you all know this, right next door to Venezuela, just recently was discovered one of the largest oil fields of all time. It officially belongs to Guyana, the former British colony. Everybody in Guyana is trying to figure out how to become a billionaire right now. And you can be sure that this hasn't escaped these guys. I think we're going to see that expand greatly. And I think, and the other thing that struck me today, did you see that Macron came out supporting Trump on this?
No.
Macron of France. Now think about that. That's rather stunning. And one reason
after Trump's one of the Trumpers called Macron's wife a man.
Yes, exactly. Maybe he's going that way. I don't know. But yes, Macron is supporting this. And at the UN, the French ambassador to the UN was pretty much on board. He was a little more critical, but he did not negate what Macron said. So there's something going on here, which I believe, and we'll see if this is right. I think that what we're not seeing here, the hidden quantity, is Iran. We're not seeing that these petrodollars are a weapon against Iran's oil power, and we're not realizing. I don't want to make this too long of a story, but let me just tell you once that I was having dinner with. I used to cover business, and I covered Wall Street for many years, and the president of the New York Stock Exchange was a friend of mine. I'm just seeing this new screen. He was telling me that he had been invited down to South America. I won't mention the country, but a country that's known for drug smuggling and all kinds of corruption, and that they were interested in making some kind of a deal with the stock exchange as essentially, to put it simply, as a way of laundering money. And the rise of the pro-Iranian movement in South America is something that locals have been noticing there for quite some time. Over the last 15 or 20 years, it's been significant. So I'm wondering if this is what's really going on here. We're seeing this is not really Donald Trump's latest crazy idea. This is somebody who has interposed their crazy idea in the Donald Trump stream, and it looks and smells like Donald Trump. But in reality, this was a Delta Force operation. This was a highly sophisticated military operation. There is a connection to the drug trade, at least if we believe what my friend at the stock exchange was saying. It's connected to the guy on a strike. It's connected to petrodollars, which now I'm not sure that you mean the same thing that I mean with when I say petrodollars. It really refers to the fact that all oil transactions in the world are conducted in dollars. And it's
well, okay, let's talk about this, David, because and I know everybody, this is going very deep, but I would suspect, as I think David is trying to say, that there's something really, really deep here.
yes.
And the catchphrase is petrodollar, because the entire American currency is based on the fact, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the exchange of petroleum in this world is handled in dollars. Now, we had two leaders who have been basically killed for messing with that. Gaddafi, who was about to set up an African currency called the dinar, and he had 100 tons of gold to back it, and Saddam Hussein. And very few people who look at the Iraqi invasion doubt that at least part of the motivation was to prevent Saddam Hussein from moving the exchange of money based in the oil business from the dollar to the euro. Now
I don't think that would have been, with all due respect.
No, please.
And you may be right, but I don't think that would have been possible because the amount is too big and everybody's involved in it. And it has to be a currency that people have, and everybody's got dollars. I once did a story about I wanted to see how many, I did a story called Almost All of US Currency is Missing. A guy at the Federal Reserve called me, and I just skip the background. But he said, I'm the guy. He said, you did a story on where the money is born, where it dies. I'm the guy that keeps track of where the money is at all times in between birth and death of money. They burn money when it's not useful anymore. And I said, where is the money? He said, we don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? And he said, because 80% of US currency is missing. And I said, what do you mean it's missing? He said, we did a huge survey and we asked everybody, how much money have you got in your pocket? And how much you got in the bank? And how much you got in the upholstery? And how much is lying around? And he said, we could not account for, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And I said, well, where is it? And he said, well, we think it's in Poland. And I said, what do you mean it's in Poland? He said, Poland and Mexico and Brazil and Israel and so on and so on. And I said, I don't believe you. And at that time, I had a lot of clout, and I commissioned a cameraman to go to Warsaw and stand outside the hard money store with his camera. And I said, I want you to look into people's wallets and see what they got in there. And he went in there, and I'll be damned if every time somebody opened their wallet, they didn't have like 30 zlotys and $12,000 US currency in $100 bills. It was always in $100 bills, by the way. And when as you know, I spent a lot of time in Brazil. Everybody has stacks of $100 bills. I just don't think it would be possible. First of all, gold is not.
Well, but Dave, the BRICS nations, I've seen this. This does get coverage. You know, Brazil. Now, I know about Russia here, but India, China, these other countries, South Africa, and I guess Venezuela is part of this, have been talking for a long time.
They have
switching currency
That's
and
true.
starting to do business in something other than dollars.
Hasn't happened.
Well, but that somebody thinks it's going to happen.
Well, part of the reason it hasn't happened is anybody who tries ends up dead. So that kind of puts a halt to things. And I'd like to really quickly call on an Iranian human rights activist, if she could speak to the Iran issue that we just brought up. And thank you, David, for your incredible knowledge and history lesson on that.
I believe, and I agree with David, there's something deeper going on here. It's not just Donald Trump being a madman. And I think it has to do with the global currency.
Let me just make one more point on this, and then I'll shut up. This is what OPEC does. OPEC exists to monitor oil production vis-a-vis the price of oil. If it's below 60, they're toast. If it's 90, nobody can afford, Americans start to complain about how much gas costs. They want to keep it at like 78, and so that's what they do.
David, you're exactly right. It's like they say it, keeping the water level above your mouth but below your nose, so they can squeeze every last cent out of you. And David, you're so brilliant. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, and very quickly, I have Ursula Rudenberg here, and Ursula is the head of the Pacifica Radio Affiliates Network. And Ursula, we want to go in deeper depth with you next week because we want to start having these calls more of a force on the Pacifica Network. Can you tell us very quickly a bit about it, and then we'll go back to Venezuela?
Am I unmuted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I thank you for inviting me here. I'm not sure exactly what you want me to say.
I just want everybody to be affiliated. If you'll put in the chat the list of affiliated Pacifica stations. Everybody here is from another place. And if anybody here will take a look at that list and find your local Pacifica station, we're going to start to build with Ursula, help her build this wonderful network. And Dave Solomon and I have had some discussions about this, and particularly want to put an environmental aspect. But I just want to introduce you, Ursula, and hopefully.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm not going to put the list in the chat because there's more than 200 radio stations. So
I'll put a link to it.
Okay. I'll put a link in. We're at pacificanetwork.org, and we
wow, look at that. So there's over 200 stations involved.
Yeah.
We've all been wringing our hands about the media networks, and here we have this Pacifica underused asset available.
Yeah, maybe could you go to pacificanetwork.org?
Steve, can we do that? And Steve Caruso also, we are being picked up now. These calls are being, these gatherings are being picked up by 5 stations on the Pacifica network. And I think that's quite impressive. And we want to build that network. Steve, what are the stations that are picking us up? Wow, look at that.
So this shows you the map of the stations that you can see. There are some stations in Europe, Canada, and Africa as well. Right now, I think we have one in Africa, and there's also beneath the map, there's a list of all the stations with links to their websites if you're interested.
Well, folks, if you're game, if you look at pacificanetwork.org, find your local station, give them a call, and give them a heads up on these calls. As I say, we're being picked up now by 5 at least, and we're going to start to build that. So Ursula, if you'll come back with us next week, we'll give you more time to really
Okay.
discuss this. And we want
Okay.
to build support for the pacificanetwork.org.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Okay, and Ursula's been with, how long have you been with Pacifica?
Since 2001.
Oh my God. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you only look like you're 25. So anyway, thank you. Come back next week, Ursula.
Okay.
And everybody, take a look at the list of Pacifica affiliates. And as I say, we're already on 5. So we want to build our reach through the Pacifica affiliates.
Okay, and Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you, and same to
Nice to
you,
visit.
Ursula. Okay,
Bye-bye.
take care. Thanks. Okay, Steve, Mike, did you want to say anything else, or we go to Ruth Strauss?
Yeah, really quickly, we have a friend of mine and a wonderful Iranian human rights activist and a terrific progressive, Hania Jodat. I hope I did mangle your name. And if you could weigh in, please, Hania.
Yeah, no worries. Good to be in community with all of you from the PDA family and beyond. It's always nice to be in the same circle. And I just want to send all of my love to Jenny for her um, you mentioned something, Jenny, about, you wish that you were still a part of MAGA. And I just thought to myself, no, sister, we need you in these organizing spaces more than ever now. So just wanted to commend your courage for organizing the way you've been doing. I don't know. I just, listening to some of the conversations that are happening, unfolding, what's happening right now in Iran, everything is too on the nose. And I just can't really help but to wonder how all of this is unfolding, after a visit from Netanyahu to Mar-a-Lago with Biden, not Biden, with Trump directly. And then, the unfolding events right now happening, the protests in Iran, which again, oftentimes happen in response to the regime's violation of human rights, but the timing is always aligning with whether we are going back to sign the JCPOA or whether there's going to be another discussion. I think the last uprising that happened in Iran was right as soon as Biden had agreed to sit with Iran indirectly to sign and to rejoin the JCPOA, which is the Joint Plan of Action, with Iran. And I think this is very similar to that. And I think we can take it a step further to really make a connection with what's happening in Venezuela and what's unfolding in Iran. We all know that Venezuela helped Iran primarily by providing strategic foothold in Latin America and helping Iran's crashing economy during some of the harshest sanctions in terms of financing our oil and, facilitating military and tech transfer. This is news anybody can have access to. And I think what's happening right now in Venezuela is kind of serving as a warning to the Iranian regime, saying we can cut you at every single angle and we will have the people under so much pressure when when your currency falls so harsh to where people can't even afford to buy food anymore. We will cut every single tie that you have with your allies, whether it's in Southern America, whether it's in North America, South America, in Asia, in Europe, wherever that may be. And so all of this unfolding of events happening in Iran with the protests, Netanyahu's visit, unlawful kidnapping of a sitting president who I always tell people, I say, I have to call out my country's regime for violating human rights, but I will be the first person to say you cannot bomb yourself to peace. And that is exactly what America is doing to different countries to gain region of to gain access to oil and to assert its power in Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela. And also this serves, in my opinion, as a threat to Ukraine, because this kind of signals his allies, Trump's allies, in terms of Putin and Russia to take over all of Ukraine. Okay, gain access of your own region and become the hegemon and become the power in that region to control everything that goes in and out. And so it's just like there's so much that is just linked and connected that one has to wonder why all of this is happening and why any of this is happening. And at the end of the day, America has never been able to democratize a country. And I think now in our age and in especially having witnessed a costly war with Iraq and Afghanistan, Libya, we now know our generation, the generation before us and the generation after us, has taken off the blinders, and now we're seeing everything very clearly. And the scary part about all of this happening is that Trump is doing it without excuses. He is very clear about his mission. He's very clear about wanting to control that region, and he's doing it before our eyes. So as my partner in crime, HARTZELL GRAY, just mentioned on the call, it is incumbent on us to really organize and really be the thorn in their sides to say, no, we are not taking this, and we're not going into another endless war blindly when 22 million people in America are going to see a huge hike in their medical insurance, hike in their premiums, right? We're not going to take this blindly, and we're not going to take this laying down. And I think that really starts with the push for impeachment of Trump. And
Well, thank you, Hanya. It's great to see you. Well, actually, we don't see you.
same. I know. Just looking at you going, oh my God, so many events that we've organized together. I miss you.
Likewise. And Hanya is a great activist, has a wonderful son, and we're glad. Join us anytime, Hanya. And I think as Saltman and Carl and everybody else knows, this is all hinging on the dollar, and the dollar is really, because the elephant in the room, I believe, is the China, India, Russia, for what it's worth, all the Venezuela, Brazil, South Africa, all these countries priming themselves to leave the petrodollar. And who knows what's going to happen? I don't, and it's a very interesting point Dave raised. This smells of something way beyond just Donald Trump's wet dream. So, Ahanya, keep coming with us, please. It's great to have you with us. Ruth Strauss, then Charlotte.
Yeah, hi. This is hello to Hanya as well, and well as Julie Levine of the Topanga Peace Alliance. I have three quick points. We're all drinking from the fire hose of miscreants, but I don't want anybody to forget the Hegseth crime. And just as an aside, my father gave me a little fishing skiff when I was a kid, and it had an outboard motor on it, like these people that were blown up. There is no effing way they could make it from, Venezuela to the United States. They'd have to have like about 25 people meet them and fill up their tanks, the gas tank that goes in an outboard motor. So it's just ludicrous. So don't forget what Hegseth blew up. The other thing is, don't forget that Netanyahu has just said NGOs can't go in and help Gaza. So, there's a lot of, crap going on around, excuse me. Last thing is, Harvey, I just heard Jaxo on Tom Hartman today, and you and Mila are so great on nuclear that and you have the magic touch of getting people in. So he's the one that wrote Confessions of a Nuclear Regulator.
Oh, yeah, Jazzco. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
Jazzco. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ruth. We appreciate it very much. Always great to have you on. Charlotte Dennett, you have a deep roots in the oil industry through your father. You've written about it deeply. What do you think's going on here, really?
Well, my father was the America's first master spy in the Middle East, and I was able to get a lot of information about him. He died when I was very young, but anyway, he wrote something in 43. He said, "We must control the oil at all costs." This was Saudi oil, okay, which became hugely important to the development of the United States as a superpower. So that's how I got into the whole oil thing. But also because I wrote a book with Jerry Colby about oil in Latin America titled Thy Will Be Done, The Conquest of the Amazon, Nelson Rockefeller and Evangelism in the Age of Oil. So check it out, folks. I've also started a Substack called Who Benefits? And I put the link in the chat. Just a couple of things. I don't know if you've mentioned how important natural gas is to fueling the data centers for AI. I think that's a huge issue. that is why they're all scrambling to get a hold of oil and natural gas. The other thing, which has always been in existence, is oil is still the fuel of the military. And there's been this great game for oil for decades. If one person gets the oil, then somebody else has to find another place. They have to keep competing against each other. And I think that's still an issue. With regard to the evangelicals, and Jennifer, she left, too bad. But, our book on Latin America examined the role of evangelical missionaries, how they were used by the oil companies to pacify indigenous peoples in the Amazon and all over Latin America, and now they've spread all over the world. So you got to really watch them. The Christian nationalism is of great concern, and they're heavily funded. They're probably funded by oil companies. They certainly were. The group that we investigated, the Wycliffe Bible translators, otherwise known as the Summer Institute of Linguistics, they're used. And one of the reasons that they don't defect is because they are shunned. If you defect, you are shunned and you're lost. So I think that's another reason why why you don't see more defections. And I agree with you about the petrodollar. I wrote about it in my most recent book titled "Follow the Pipelines," and I forgot my own subtitle, but it's about the great game for oil. Okay.
All right. Well,
Anyway,
Tatanka will remember. Tatanka's deep into this. Charlotte, let's go to Tatanka Bricka here, who's been with this issue for since the Monroe Doctrine was first written in the 1820s.
Thank you, Sonny. I really appreciate this conversation, and just everybody who's come on from Mimi's opening poem all the way through. So, responding to some of the things that came up under with Carl and David and Jenny, I want to thank Jenny for talking about yes, and, because all these things coexist. There's so many contradictions coexisting at the same time. And so we need to be flexible enough in our thinking to understand that. I think the elephant in the room that hasn't been talked about, and before people just tune out and walk away, because this happens all the time with me, okay, is the work that Danny Sheehan and others have been doing for some time. Actually, Danny Sheehan of the Christic Institute and the New Paradigm Institute. A hobby of his for nearly 50 years was he was the only constitutional attorney that was representing Air Force and Navy pilots who were losing their pensions, their reputations, and some of them their lives. And so it brought him directly in contact with Project Blue Book under Carter's administration and Carter's experience with UFOs. What I want to say is that, and this is not fantasy. I mean, this is really confirmed by people within the government, people in the Pentagon, people in high corporate places, including aerospace, that the big secret is that of all those batch of secrets that the government is holding, the Epstein files, the JFK files, et cetera, there's also one in there and one not in there. The one in there that Danny talks about is all the patents stolen by the U.S. government of
Hey,
all.
Tatanka, I don't mean to cut you off, but I'd love to have a deep dive if we could get Danny on to talk about this, because this is extremely important. But
You're
we are
exactly.
trying to maintain focus on Venezuela for now. But this is a hugely important subject, and you're absolutely right. It's been systematically suppressed. So
Okay,
thank you for
all
bringing
right.
it up.
Then
But let's
I won't.
help us.
We will have. Well, then I'll plant the seed to say,
Please.
all the talk about oil is that we have had an alternate. We have never needed the oil wars. People in the military know this. As late as the Eisenhower years, we've had alternate energy, and the fact, energy not just re-engineered back and engineered from the craft down that are still being downed, but also from the patents stolen, the Tesla energy. So the deep secret behind all of this is the fact that people in the military understand this, and they know that if the secret of that comes out, and this is one of the things that's going to happen soon, because Danny Sheehan has been asked to write a bill that I'll have him talk about when he gets on, that I think would open things up in the government for those files to come out. It's very, very clear, for instance, in bringing Cuba in, that the push to have Jack Kennedy killed before 1964 was certainly spurred ahead when the CIA, very late in the game, found out that the back channel discussions of Norman Cousins with Khrushchev, and that Kennedy and Khrushchev had decided they were going to disarm the nukes. They also wanted to make space a neutral place, a place of public ownership. And so Kennedy committed, as an act of good faith, to send what he knew about UFOs to Khrushchev. And this was completely forgotten, because all the 80% of money that David was talking about disappearing, there is so much money awash that has disappeared, and much of it is related to the military, and much of it is related to what is going on, that the military is backing the oil companies and backing the nuclear companies right now, because the alternative secret that we're not alone, and the alternative secret of this technology changes everything. Yes, it ends the petro-dollar as well, but it opens up, if this is property of the people of the world, it opens up free energy for the whole world. I'm going to leave it at that, but I want to have him on the talk, because he will tell you what he knows and what he doesn't know.
Well, Tatanka, if you'll get Danny to come on, we'll devote a whole session. Danny, Tatanka, if you'll come on.
Muted, Sluggo.
Can you hear me?
Well, maybe I'm muted.
Can you?
Yeah, we can all hear you, Sonny.
Okay, so if you will get Danny Sheehan, we will devote a whole session, you and Danny, a whole hour at least, to all this, because we are clearly at a major turning point here. And I think that there are many, many layers to what's going on here in Venezuela. Clearly, and we haven't talked about this, but clearly Epstein is a factor. Clearly, Cuba is a factor. Clearly, the oil itself. And I should point out, I invited Steve Donziger on. I don't see him on here. The oil is very specific oil. It's heavy, dirty, crude oil, and there are very few refineries that can handle them. Chevron is a key player. One of the refineries actually is in Northern California, and one of the refineries is also in Cuba. So there's a very restricted audience for or consumer base for this kind of oil. But then, to me, above all, and we really, Karl and Salty, I mean, you guys, the question, know this better than anybody, the question of the petrodollar is definitely involved here. Venezuela is a key player in the idea of fomenting an alternative currency, and the elephant in the room clearly is China. China is the primary consumer of Venezuelan oil. And there's something else going on here nobody's dealing with. I also want to say, and it's horrifying, that nobody is covering the death toll. Allegedly there have been no Americans killed. At least 100 people have already died in this raid. And, because they're mostly not Americans, apparently they don't warrant American media coverage. So,
can I say one more thing?
Of course.
Okay, so just to underscore something that's been a mantra of myself when I'm on these shows, the corporate culture, corporations plan 100 years ahead. 50 years is the minimum time frame they plan. And some people like Danny have heard stories, and I've heard 3 or 4 myself. Charlotte was talking about when the Rockefellers in South America, when I was helping put together Amnesty International, West Coast, with Janetta Sagan and Joan Baez. I ended up at TCU in a meeting that by accident, I wasn't supposed to be there, of the people that organized the meeting that invited these human rights activists from all over the world. And the person sitting next to the person who hosted it, the de Menil family, just happened to be a Rockefeller, and he thought he was in a closed room. And the communist filmmaker that had been invited to, that everybody had great credibility in, to film this event in Texas, it turns out that the whole purpose of the event was really so that he could get these people in a room and have the thing filmed, because he was talking about how this film was going to be used in Colombia, in Venezuela, in Brazil, going to be used throughout Latin America 50 to 80 years from now, to position the Rockefellers as being human rights champions. They do these sort of things. They reverse engineer their plans, and people have heard me tell the story. I was told the story.
Okay.
When I was offered a job, I knew that we would be at war with Iran 50 years ago, because they wanted me to run a war with Ukraine, because they wanted me to head up the Ukraine operation. So that is key with all of this, that long-term planning, that they can't, even if they want to, sometimes they are running the Titanic and it's not going to turn around. And many people who are the MAGA people would rather go to heaven with Jesus than have
But everybody's going to go to the poorhouse. I mean,
yeah.
The disintegration of the petrodollar, to me, and maybe I'm overstating this, is absolutely essential to any kind of stability the American economy can claim. And clearly Venezuela's move in with Brazil, India, China, South Africa, who knows where Russia's really standing now, is a threat to the future of the American economy without parallel.
Yeah, and the refineries that we have all throughout the South and the Midwest are built for that oil. They can't use it for other oil,
So we had Steve Donziger on. I didn't know he was with us. If he comes back, let us know, because he knows about Chevron and all that stuff. If not, we'll have to have him back. I didn't know he was on the call. Tatanka, stay with us. Murtaza, did you want to say anything? Or Mike Hirsch? And then Murtaza?
I'd like to hear from Mataza first, please, because he's been very patient.
Go ahead, Murtaza, go ahead.
Thank you. This has been good. And Harvey, I want to echo what you said about the multiple layers and multiple drivers for what's happened in Venezuela. Two things I'd note. We talked about Netanyahu. Just one note is that my understanding is the action was delayed because of weather. Netanyahu was with Trump New Year's Eve, and rumor is that it was New Year's Eve was when the actual plan to attack Venezuela was. So it's just interesting that it's likely that during the attack, Netanyahu and Trump would have been together in Mar-a-Lago. And then the other thing is, you mentioned Cuba. Just want to echo that. Rubio's role and Rubio's interest in Cuba and the involvement of Cuba in in Venezuela and in the government there is pretty significant. And I mean, we're likely looking at domino effects, right? That this is not, Venezuela is just the beginning. Cuba and others, this is the whole discussion about the sphere of influence that, and as Trump mentioned, the Monroe Doctrine, that, this is an attempt to really influence all of Latin America. And Venezuela is just the beginning. So it's scary times, a lot of things going on. And no, thanks for having this forum.
Thank you. Donald Smith. Donald, you want to jump in with us? Are you muted?
Okay, yeah. Tom Hartman sent out an email in which he compared what Trump is doing to Venezuela to, he called it the Putin doctrine, Putin doctrine of, just invading neighbors. But Tom Hartman pointed out, as did Ro Khanna, that the U.S. has done this all over the world, unfortunately, in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya.
It'll take too long to list them all, Donald, but you're absolutely right.
So anyway, the point is, U.S. has occupied 1/3 of Syria, the part with oils, for 10 years. So although I certainly think it's horrible what Trump is doing, it's unfortunate there are a lot of precedents, and this is something that Tom Hartman pointed out, and others too. I just wanted to point this out, so the Democrats are partly to blame for this mess that we're in.
Great job, Donald. Great job. Sonny, I'm getting texts back from Ro Khanna and from Congressman Ro Khanna, from Senator Chris Van Hollen. So we're going to see if we can't get them to come on one of our Zooms in a week or so. But this is absolutely huge. We're really onto something. I want to thank Tatanka for contextualizing this on a galactic scale, as you do, and for all your brilliance. I want to thank David Saltman for challenging us to substantiate our concerns about the petrodollar, and thank you for all your wisdom. Everybody wants to get in touch with you, Salty. Thank you, Charlotte Dennett, for your scholarship and research. And I just want to say real quickly that it occurred to me one day that World War II didn't end because the Allies won. The Axis literally ran out of gas. And from that lesson, the Pentagon thinkers have decided that not only keeping control of oil so the U.S. could have as much as we needed for our war machine, but also, as Sluggo or Sonny, as you mentioned, denying oil from our adversaries, especially China, but also other countries, has been a weapon that we've used to maintain hegemony. And going right to what Tatanka was saying about how we didn't need to be oil-based, we don't need to be fossil fuel-based. We are, because of a conscious choice that has to do with geopolitical power, control, hegemony, and the ability to starve and bully other nations. And it's a shameful part of cornerstone of U.S. foreign policy that costs us literally trillions of dollars and unconscionable damage to the climate and the environment, because fossil fuels are controllable. Solar, wind, and other clean, green, alternative, renewable energy is not controllable. And we cannot use that to deny other countries the sustenance that they need to run their economies and to challenge us. So we're really breaking amazing ground here. And as Sonny has said, and other people have said, no mainstream media is willing to report this because they rely on fossil fuel money, advertising to run, and they're also interlocked with these corporate boards where we're all held hostage to what I call the military industrial fossil fuel complex.
Well, you left nuclear out.
Well, nuclear is a huge part of it too. And it's all interlocked, and we're all, hamsters running on their wheel until we rise up and take back our power, literally our political, economic, and the power that we use to heat and run our devices and all that. We don't have to be under the thumb of these tyrants. And thank God for all the wonderful champions on this Zoom who are leading the fight for our freedom.
Okay, so I want to mention next week, we have had at KPFK in Los Angeles, starting in 2017, a show called California Solartopia, and it's been off the air for a few months. And next week, I'm going to present a petition to get it back to KPFK. And we had Ursula on from the Pacifica Network and we're going to expand these calls and the California, well, I want to rename it the Solartopia.org show. I want to rename these Zoom calls Solartopia.org as well, if that's okay with you. Anybody have a better suggestion? We will not be able to call it Pornhub, even though that would certainly expand our listenership. But so this is, I think, the beginning of a serious era here, this invasion. It is very, very deep. It goes way beyond Jeffrey Epstein, way beyond just the oil. We're definitely going to see them moving on Cuba in the very short term. And it was,
Harvey, I'm sorry.
Who's that? Who's that
It
speaking?
was Charlotte. I just had a
Yeah.
quick one.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, on the good side, the whole reason that people don't know about the oil angle behind all these wars. I've documented there all of them. All the endless wars are about oil, and it's been kept out. The reason mothers don't want to send their kids off to war if it means fighting for oil companies. This is known. And now you have constituents calling their lawmakers saying, we don't want this war because we don't want to go to war for oil. It's a positive thing.
Well, one thing you have to say about Trump is that he's pretty transparent. He doesn't need to be. But
Exactly.
never in American history, well, at least not since the robber baron era, has a president explained that one of our interventions into a foreign country has been to get their oil. I mean, he's been very clear that the attack on Venezuela, aside from all this nonsense about Maduro, I mean, we have no problem with dictators. And again, you have to ask, they're saying that Maduro is in because of a stolen election. Venezuela did not invade Florida when George W. Bush stole the 2000 election, or Ohio when he stole it in 2004. But Trump has said, Trump has said, we're going to take their oil and we're bringing in the oil companies to deal with that oil. I mean, that is an astounding thing for an American president to say. And he said these oil companies are going to invest billions of dollars in Venezuelan oil. And then he's somehow been saying that it's our oil anyway. You'll remember that Jimmy Carter said something similar about the oil in the Middle East, that it was American oil. I mean, apparently, in their worldview, all oil is American oil.
Sonny, you're absolutely right. I was doing some research on this, and Jimmy Carter announced what was called the Carter Doctrine, where, as peaceful as he threatened military attacks on anybody who threatened the Middle Eastern oil fields. And he said that in a joint session of Congress. And it's very remarkable that Jimmy Carter, who refused to use armed force to free hostages in Iran, was willing to spill blood for oil. And that just contextualizes it for everybody. And I think it's very important for us to understand that oil has been the lifeblood of the military. The military spends trillions of dollars defending the oil and runs on oil. And it's not just to guarantee access to us, it's also to prevent access to our adversaries from our adversaries, and even from Europe. So we can blackmail and strong arm people. And Charlotte, what's your take on that?
Well, I do want to very quickly say it's one of God's great mysteries that all that American oil wound up in other countries. I mean, we don't know how that happened. But anyway, go ahead, Charlotte.
I forgot what I was going to say.
I distracted you with a dumb joke.
Ask me again. Ask me again.
Okay, well, we got Steve Caruso and Myra and Tatanka.
I'll come back.
Yeah, Steve and then Myra.
Yeah, so the whole thing where we've come to a head where solar power, wind power, batteries can fulfill any need we have. It's unbelievable. They'll deny it. We don't have enough power for AI. No, you can do it. It can be done. I've crunched the numbers, not just me, other people have. I mean, whatever. So, and then you have the fact that we're all being put into this feudal footprint because of big oil. That's the system that has to change. These are the growing pains of the system that needs to go away. And maybe this is it. Maybe this is the nail in the coffin. We'll see. But that's what I have to say. Thanks.
Steve, you're absolutely right. At one point, we fueled our economy through whaling, and we kind of ran out of whales. It's time for us to turn the page and stop burning junk to power things when we don't need to do it. We can't afford to do it. It's killing us. It's destroying our economy. and we have to do better. This is the 21st century. We need to leave the 20th century behind.
Well,
Electricity in
enough,
your house.
I was just
Put electricity in
explaining.
your house. That was, what were we doing before that? Burning hemp oil, We
No,
have
well,
light bulbs now. It's amazing, isn't it? Okay.
I was just explaining. I was just telling to my 9-year-old grandson the story of Moby Dick. And I explained to him that the whaling industry was the oil industry. And weirdly enough, the discovery of oil, of fossil fuels in the ground in Pennsylvania in the 1850s saved the whales. I mean, we almost damn near ran out of whale because they were boiling down the blubber and there weren't any whales left. Anybody wants, by the way, there's an incredible movie about that called In the Heart of the Sea, which follows the Moby Dick story. There really was a Moby Dick. There was a white whale that took down a ship called the Essex. And the Moby Dick story is based on that. But there's an amazing movie called In the Heart of the Sea. Herman Melville comes to Nantucket to get the story of the Essex having been rammed by the white whale. I highly recommend this movie to everybody. But you're right, the whaling industry was the oil industry. And the first oil well came exactly at the time when the whales were about to totally disappear. Who had the next hand? Tatanka, go ahead. Oh, Mila, and then Tatanka.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly say this morning I watched an interview, a discussion with who appeared to be one of the world's top authorities on Venezuela. He's a journalist and a scholar residing in Mexico right now. His name is Jose Luis Granados Ceja, and very well informed individual with a lot of contacts in Venezuela. And he was interviewed this morning by Sam Cedar and Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. And I just highly recommend it to everybody who really wants to gain a deeper understanding of what's going on in Venezuela and the politics that are involved.
Can you put that in the chat, Mila, please?
I will. I was actually just typing something in, but that's all.
Okay.
I just wanted to recommend that to everybody.
And Mila's been with Tatanka there. The two of you are on my screen have been our co-conspirators on the Solartopia show, which we want to take nationwide. And we're going to be petitioning KPFK. So that'll be next week, and we'll talk more about that. Tatanka, you want to jump back in, and then Charlotte?
Yeah, just a reminder, we're talking about oil. The society of financiers that financed the colonial expansion from Europe to all the world. They called themselves the Northern Industrial Alliance. Their mission statement was to avail ourselves of the raw materials of planet Earth to which we are entitled. And that was backed up by the doctrine of discovery of the Catholic Church, etc. When Allen Dulles was asked to write the mission statement of the CIA, he wrote the mission statement of the CIA is to avail our corporations, it didn't say our corporations, to avail ourselves of the raw materials of planet Earth that support our way of life.
Right.
It's a continuation of all that. And when the wall came down and the secret Defense Department planning document in 1991-92, which had Cheney, Rumsfeld, and the future W administration, they basically said, we have comprised a new Northern Industrial Alliance, and we are adding Russia to it now that Russia has spun off all its ethnic provinces.
Wow. There you go. Of course, the other paragraph in the founding statement of the CIA was their dedication to murdering John Kennedy. Oh, sorry. Okay. Thank you for that, Tatanka.
I could add.
Charlotte,
I
go
could add
ahead.
to that.
We got 10 minutes.
What?
We got 10 minutes.
All right. Nelson Rockefeller was appointed by Truman to head up a special Cold War strategy and propaganda. It was called the Special Group, and Dulles was part of that. And Nelson Rockefeller was the person in charge of all CIA operations. People don't know this, of course. It's all censored. Our book was suppressed, but you can still get it. And anyway, that's in my recent Substack. By the way, Nelson Rockefeller was involved in 2 coups in Brazil. In 45, overthrowing Vargas, and in 64, overthrowing blank. Anyway, I mean, it's amazing his role, and which is not known. But here's the thing: he approached it all differently. He was appointed by FDR to head up this huge department called the Office of the Coordinator of Inter-American Affairs, and the whole thing was to go into Latin America and get the Germans out of there and get the Italians out of there. And so he had this huge infrastructure. And by the way, his family was with Creole Petroleum in Venezuela. That's where he got his start in Latin America. Then he had this great shining dream to develop the Amazon, and he went about it. He established all these contacts with the military, with industrialists, everybody he could think of during World War II and afterwards. He had a huge role, but what he did is he was much more sophisticated. I put in my Substack, he must be rolling in his grave because Trump is blowing it all in the open. You know, they've kept it under wraps for so long. Just one other comment. Let's not forget about Gaza. Let's not forget about that. Oil and genocide go together. The plan for Netanyahu is to do an energy corridor all the way up the Mediterranean. That's why all of Gaza City is destroyed. And he wants to get the $500 billion worth of oil and natural gas off the Eastern Mediterranean and do what with it? Ship it to Europe, who needs it because of Ukraine. They're all connected, and it's hitherto been all covered up.
Charlotte, could you please share a link to your Substack? We'd
Right.
all love to read more about
And
what
this
you're
is-
doing.
We got
I
7
did
minutes here. 7 minutes left for anybody who wants
Okay,
to jump in.
I'll do it
I've
again.
always
I
had a
did it earlier.
special feeling for Nelson Rockefeller because of the way he died. If anybody
Oh
wants to,
yeah, that's how
That-
people remember him.
yeah, that's how I want to be remembered. But anyway, you know, this is why solar energy and wind and batteries are so important. None of this would be happening if the world was solar powered. And why Tatanka's stuff and Danny Sheehan's on, the alleged inventions coming from outer space, which can no longer be poo-pooed, which we really have to deal with. This is a turning point here. And you finally have a lunatic, a madman in the White House who is crazy enough to tell why he's doing what American imperial intruders have been doing for 2 centuries. And one of the big questions, and Dave Saltman will know better than anybody, how is Latin America going to break down on this? What is Brazil and the other progressive countries? And now we see why Trump put this guy in charge in Argentina or Chile, wherever, I mean, Latin America is clearly totally polarized. And he's threatened Mexico. So go ahead, Mila.
Well, I can say, Trump is backing Milei. He bailed him out in Argentina.
Yes, right.
I mean, Chile, excuse me. Got confused there. And of course, Lula is going to be probably really important in this conversation. I just wanted to briefly say, when you brought up Nelson Rockefeller, Charlotte, that we have to also remember that Rockefeller was one of the chief backers of Francisco Franco. When he was, Franco was taken out of power, but he was allowed to, he wasn't put in jail, went into exile. And there he plotted with Nelson Rockefeller, among others. And Rockefeller backed him up when he came back to challenge the people of Spain, and he gained control. fascist control over Spain for so many years, but with the backing of Nelson Rockefeller.
Right. And the person who earlier, God knows hours before, who pointed out that the Nazis lost World War II because they ran out of gas, that was 100% accurate. And the biggest mistake that Hitler made in World War II was to go into Stalingrad as opposed to going into the oil fields in Romania. And anyway, Dave Solomon, you want to jump in here real quick?
Well, I'm not sure I have much to add. Charlotte, I think the name you were looking for was João Goulart.
Yeah, right.
He was the
Thanks.
president in 64. I do know that when they talk about Goulart, this is when the military, the army, La Ditadura, took over in Brazil from 64 until seems like just yesterday. And the story on Goulart was it was a bloodless coup. One day they just basically put enough heavy weather on the guy that one day, and this is literally true, is from what I've been told by people who were there. He one day just stood up, washed his hands and face, put on his suit, walked out of the office, and just didn't come back. They didn't have to put him in jail. They didn't have to do anything. He just.
I think we've all wanted to do that from time to time.
Well, of course, this also, to a certain extent, explains Trump's affinity for Bolsonaro. I mean, it's a huge deal that Lulu is in charge of Brazil and not Bolsonaro. The whole balance of power in Latin America and this whole invasion of Venezuela would be a very different animal.
And Salty, what's the name of the maniac with the chainsaw in Argentina? The guy who's crashed the economy there, and he's needed us to bail him out. Like he's coming to us like a delinquent kid who crashed his Cadillac and needs to get bailed out of jail.
It's Malay.
And he's the buddy of.
Thank you.
He's the buddy of Elon Musk. He and Elon Musk are tight.
Yeah, Lula. The balance of power, as far as I can make out, I've spent a lot of time in Brazil trying to figure this out. Between Lula and Bolsonaro, it's very evenly balanced. And even the same people, one day they'll be pro Lula, and the next day they'll be pro Bolsonaro. It's crazy.
Well, it's like this country too, where people who voted for Obama twice voted for Trump 3 times. Yeah. Same people. Yeah. But Mila, I wanted to thank you for connecting some dots for us. It's always very important for us to kind of slow down and make sure everybody's with us, because we get excited and start shouting facts. But Mila, you did a great job connecting it, and Charlotte, you as well. And Sonny, I was the one who pointed out that the Axis ran out of gas.
Yeah,
and
they did.
And when Franklin Roosevelt got the U.S. Mobilized for World War II after Pearl Harbor, he wanted to go and liberate Paris. But Winston Churchill said, basically, screw Paris. We need to keep Hitler from getting the oil fields in North Africa. And that's where the U.S. troops went, for Tobruk, and to prevent Hitler from getting his hands on the petroleum. And you're absolutely right, Sonny, that he should have gone after the oil fields. And there was a belated attempt to get to the oil fields. But again, they ran out of gas. They weren't able to do that. And they were making their own synthetic gasoline. They were trying to get atomic power and so on and so forth. But yeah, I was the one who came up with the Axis ran out of gas.
Yes, they did. Thank God. And listen, we're almost out of time here. This has been an amazing session, as I knew it was be. We will resume next week. Salty, it's great to have you with us. Tatanka, Mila, let's see if we can get Danny to give us the scoop from outer space. We really need it. And this is all going to unfold. We will send you, when Counterpunch and freepress.org hopefully publish our piece, me and Karl will send that out tomorrow. And this has been absolutely essential. This has been the Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition. I do want to change it. I'm toying with solartopia.org. Somebody asked if that cuts out the focus on elections, and that's no. In Solartopia, we actually have democracy, and so it is a global vision. And anybody have any response to renaming it solartopia.org?
Well, Sonny,
Please let me know.
what if we were to call the second hour Solartopia?
Well, that's something to discuss. Absolutely. I have had people that don't like GREEP, but and I am now Sonny's. People seem to like Sonny, but remember, it's not Sonny Corleone. I need to go through. I need to go through toll booths safely. It's Sonny, as in Solartopia, and my grandfather was named Saul, and I always liked the name Sonny. So remember, it's not Corleone. So okay, you guys.
Bada bing,
Thank you
bada
so much,
boom.
everybody. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering, Mila, Mike, Salty, everybody. And we'll be back again next week. Okay? We still got 67 people with us. It's hard to say goodbye, but here we are. We'll see you next week, everybody. No nukes. And we will be petitioning to put the Solartopia show back on the air at KPFK. No nukes, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Si se
No
puede.
nukes. Si se puede.